The chalk bag felt foreign in his hand, a clumsy pouch of dust where muscle memory expected a seamless extension of his will. Jasper's fingers, once capable of reading granite like Braille, now trembled as he forced them into the fine white powder. Above him, the wall, he'd stopped calling it by its given name, Whispering Giants, was a brutal, unadorned sheet of gray stone, a vertical desert stretching into the bleached morning sky. Its cumulative roots, a madman's spreadsheet calculation, equated to 5,280 feet, a vertical mile. It was not a climb, it was an exorcism. 2 years. That's how long the ghost of the fall had lived in his bones. A simple slip on a route he deemed beneath him, a whipper that ended not in a clean pendulum swing, but a brutal, cartwheeling impact against an unforgiving outcrop. The shattered ankle had healed. The shattered confidence had festered. His belayer, Maya, stood behind him, her presence a steady anchor. "You don't have to do this, Jazz," she said, her voice quiet but firm. "No one would." "I have to," Jasper replied, his eyes fixed on the first hold, a sharp crimp a few feet off the ground. The statement wasn't for her. It was a mantra for the part of his brain screaming at him to retreat. The antagonist here wasn't the rock. It was the silent, cold fear that had taken root in his gut, a void that sucked all warmth and courage. This mile was his attempt to climb out of it. He touched the stone. It was cold, impersonal. His first move was hesitant, a clumsy push from his legs rather than the fluid, confident pull his body once knew. But he was on. The journey had begun. The morning sun gave way to the harsh, revealing light of midday. Jasper moved through the first 1,000 feet, the approach, a series of moderate climbs that served as a warm-up his body no longer felt. Every pop of a carabiner, every soft zip of the rope through the ATC was a note in a familiar song he was terrified of forgetting. By the afternoon, he reached the Crucible, a notorious overhang of technical, strength-sapping moves. Here, the rock demanded everything. Sweat stung his eyes. His forearms screamed, the pump a burning tide rising towards his elbows. This was where the fall had happened, not on this specific rock, but on a section just like it. A memory flashed unbidden, the sickening sensation of weightlessness, the world tilting on its axis, the sound of his own grunt of surprise cut short by impact. His breath hitched. His left hand, searching for a sloper, faltered. For a heart-stopping second, he was back in that freefall. "Breathe, Jasper!" Maya's voice cut through the panic from below, a lifeline tossed across the void. "Find your feet, trust the rubber." He pressed his forehead against the cool granite, the stone a silent confessor. He focused on the feel of his climbing shoes on a small, crystalline edge. He breathed in, out, forcing the air deep into his diaphragm, pushing back against the constriction in his chest. This was the real climb. Not the physical pull, but the mental push against the inertia of his own terror. He moved. It was not graceful. It was a grunt, a heave, a desperate scrabble. But he cleared the overhang, collapsing onto a small ledge, his chest heaving, not from exertion alone, but from the sheer emotional cost. The sun began its descent, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple. The final third of the climb, the arete of acceptance, was a long, elegant spine of rock. His body was a symphony of pain, a dull ache in his ankles, a sharp protest in his shoulders, raw skin on his fingertips. But the cacophony in his mind had quieted. He wasn't fighting the rock anymore. He was dancing with it. He read the sequences, his body responding with a fluency he thought was lost. The fear was still there, but it was no longer a paralyzing force. It was a passenger, acknowledged but not in control. The last 10 feet were a near-vertical slab, requiring balance and delicate footwork over pure power. He unclipped from his last piece of protection, climbing free. The void beneath him was vast, but it held no power over him now. Each move was precise, a meditation. His hand reached up, fingers finding a positive edge. One final high step, and he was there. The summit was not a peak, but a broad, flat ledge. He pulled himself over the edge and lay on his back, the stone warm from the day's sun. The sky was an infinite, deepening blue. He had done it. Maya's voice crackled over the radio. "You're there." It wasn't a question. "I'm here," he said, his voice hoarse. A long silence, then her reply, thick with emotion. "I never doubted it." He sat up, legs dangling over the edge of his mile. The world below was miniature, peaceful. The ghost was gone. He hadn't conquered it, he had simply outclimbed it, 1 meter of rock, 1 moment of fear at a time. The vertical mile wasn't a measure of height, but of the distance he had traveled within himself. He was not the man who had fallen, he was the man who had gotten back up. And in the quiet triumph of the high place, that was enough.